Hello and welcome to the first episode of Saved by the Belial, an atrocious Ultraman podcast. I am one of your hosts, David, and joining me is the always lovely and cordial Chris.
Wow, welcome back.
I know. I'm going to have to seriously pull out a thesaurus and just come up with 20 different adjectives for you. So then I can just never run out. Because that's kind of what happened last time is I just ran out of beautiful things to say about you.
Well, you can reuse all of them. You can just say like ultra beautiful or ultra pretty, ultra effervescent, ultra humble.
Ultra thick.
Oh, how many C's?
5.
Oh, amen.
But again, welcome to the first episode. We're we are ultra excited to get this going, and I hope you haven't already hit X out of this. But we figured it would be good to do an introductory episode since we started. Well, I guess with Kaiju Apostle Podcast, we had a podcast and we didn't do an introduction episode for a year.
It was like a reintroduction episode.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because if you look back, it says it was published first, but it was definitely a year after. We made that very clear. So
That's okay.
But so we figure, why don't we kind of give a little bit of context of why this podcast even exists, where we came from. What you're not going to get is a lecture or and I say lecture in a scholastic sense, not a you got in trouble sense, but we're not going to go over the history of Ultraman or anything like that. There's a lot of resources out there. That's not really what we're trying to do. So if you're not already aware, we had a podcast before called the Kaiju Apostle Podcast. And before that, we had a podcast called 1001 Jedi Knights, which actually went back on iTunes. Man, I love that every single 5-star review we got came with an actual review.
Oh my gosh, right.
I looked at that. I was like, man, that's super heartwarming. These were some good reviews. They're like, we're really excited to see where this is going. It's like, I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, that's what they're going to put on my gravestone.
Oh man, that's bleak. Anyway, so we were the co-hosts of the Kaiju Apostle Podcast. Ran from September 19 to here end of 2020, and our goal with that was to take a different approach on some of these Kaiju Toho films. But instead of just going over the history or getting into the ideas, we took more of a theological approach. Took some creative liberties with it, had a lot of fun. It was very surprising that a podcast about Godzilla and theology kicked off the way that it did. But after a while, we were talking about, it's like, man, we really should find a way to diversify this, because it just kind of felt like, okay, it's not that the movies are the same, right? We just want to do something different. So we talked about well, what if we did a Patreon and we did Super Sentai? We alternate between Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman because we started getting into that. But Chris, you were the one who told me, it's like, hey, I can't do this because I have too much time. Well, I don't have enough time. Excuse me.
I'm Sydney Lauper. Too much time on my hands.
Oh man. But so when I suggested that, you're like, hey, that's not going to work. But you actually offered an idea for me to do something on the side. And what was that idea?
Yeah, so this was still probably halfway into Ultraman Z, right?
Yeah, it was probably August or September of 2020.
Yeah, because I remember I was still able to go outside and wear short sleeves. But yeah, I had just mentioned, since I was getting into Ultraman Z and I didn't really know much about the franchise, I was thinking about what you could do that would be unique. And part of that was just talk about each episode of the show, but only using 3 minutes, like the color timer. Since theoretically in each episode, you can only be Ultraman for 3 minutes. And so I thought that was kind of a fun way to put a TCAP on the discussion without without being because some of these episodes I'm fairly confident aren't going to give a ton to talk about, but some you probably need to put a cap on them so you're not spending 27 minutes on episode 3 and then still have a few episodes to go. So Yeah, so I thought that'd be kind of a fun, unique way to do an Ultraman show. And this was kind of back when I didn't think there were like any.
Yeah. Yeah, and the first name we had was, Shawatch the Clock, which, I mean, still to this day, I think is a great name. But we,
We'll find ways to get that into this one still. No
oh,
worries
absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I had talked to a few people about trying to do that podcast, and it didn't work out. But we decided no matter what, like, hey, we're gonna take a break. We needed a hiatus. A lot had been going on. I mean, I don't know, this thing called COVID-19, if you've ever heard of it, right? So that kind of been throwing a wrench in a lot of works here. And we're just like, let's take a hiatus. Let's take a Sabbath from this, right? My wife was very thankful for that. And in the meantime, we're like, you know what? This Ultraman idea, why don't we just turn the podcast into an Ultraman podcast? It just, there's a lot of variety here. We really enjoyed Ultraman Z. I binged through pretty much everything Mill Creek had released at that point. And we're like, all right, let's figure out a way to do this. So we committed to it. We commissioned some artwork. We started commissioning some music. And we're like, all right. So I think you still came up with the name again from Ace to Z. And we're like, oh man, that's amazing name, right? You know, going from like Ace being in the Showa era to Z being in this new gen Raiwa. I hate the pedantics of these eras that, you know. Anyway, so we're like, okay, it's such a good way to describe what the show's gonna be.
You're see, even though I came up with that, none of that went through my head. It was just a funny.
Yeah.
It just
But
sounded
hey,
funny.
and that's fine. But we do this, and then we're getting ready to go, and then all of a sudden, this Ultraman podcast pops out of nowhere called Ace A to Z, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, we didn't know you guys were going live yet." And it's like that's not us.
And it's so funny because it's like exactly the opposite. Because we were Ace to Z, and if they're A to Z, then
Yeah, exactly. Switch, they're great guys. Definitely support them. You should check out their podcast. So we had to recommission some artwork. We had, well, first of all, we had to come up with a new name, um, which obviously you know now. So we recommissioned some new artwork. We recommissioned music, all this stuff, and here we are. We are finally starting the podcast. And I swear, if I find out someone else had already had this name, I just would have quit. I was like, I'm done. Just I'm done. But thankfully, no one else came up with Saved by the Belial. I mean, I guess we could have done the other one I came up with, Ultraman X Gonna Give It to You, but I don't know.
yeah, that one was a great Twitter handle. It probably would have translated really well.
Yeah, I love my puns. We love, I mean, that's it, right? You're here because you like dad jokes. So,
Oh, we could have done like Need for Jeed. I just came up with that.
oh my gosh. No, okay, that's totally an episode title later on. That's perfect. Remember that, please. Actually, okay, let me go into the notes here. Chris, you're beautiful. Thank you.
Um,
Do you have
man,
anything you want to add there before we go into the show structure?
I think every time that someone likes our episode, instead of liking it, they should go happy, like that one Ultra woman. Anyway, I should save these. I can't keep dropping these here.
I love Asahi. She's great. Ultra Woman Grigio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Man, I can't wait to go into Rube. It's such a fun show. It's so underrated. Man, talk like I had someone explain it to me as like it's a slice of life Ultraman show, and it's exactly that, and it's wonderful. So, but yeah, do you have anything you want to add?
I think I added all of my golden nuggets for the introductory episode already.
Oh man, man. Now that Harlow's been eating solid food, man, totally nuggets. Totally nuggets. It's been great. My daughter's one, by the way. I'm not talking about like a 5 or 6 year old. Okay, so anyway, show structure. So what we're doing here, as you've already heard, is we're going to focus 3 minutes per episode of a show. And depending on the show itself, you're going to have anywhere from like 6 episodes to 10 episodes that we're going to cover at a time. That's just obviously depending on whether we're talking about a 40 episode show like Ultraman or with like Ultraman Ginga, it only has 12 episodes. So obviously, we're not going to do 12 in one. We want to be able to break it up a little bit. So we'll go through, kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about. The fun thing is we're hiding our notes from each other, so I have no idea what Chris came up with. He has no idea what I came up with. I'm sure we'll have some Community, Arrested Development references because that's where our minds go. Homestar Runner too. So if you like any of those things, there will inevitably be references. So yeah, it's just going back and forth in that. Obviously, when you hear the color timer going off, that means it is time for us to wrap up. This is going to be a discipline and conciseness.
Yeah, we're definitely both gonna have to like because it might feel longer sometimes than it is, might feel shorter. We'll have to get used to it too. So it'll be
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah, because like I've got 12 pages of notes for
Mm.
this next
Mhm.
episode coming up, and I'm like, I know I'm not going to cover everything. Um, but that being said, if we do have any thoughts that don't make it that we feel like we want to share, we'll put those in the show notes. Um, Now, why are we focusing on certain shows, Chris?
Because your boy's too afraid to download anything.
Oh, geez, yeah, that's true.
Well, yeah, so with our partnership with Mill Creek, we wanted to focus on
Spoiler,
I know, I'm so
spoiler,
sorry. But
spoiler.
take take the wind out of those sails a little bit.
That
But
no, first of all, we decided on this before that.
oh yeah,
Remember?
that's true. Well,
Yeah.
so actually my first answer was the truest one. We did just want to focus on shows that were more legally and easily accessible. So
Mhm.
like I know most of them are available on Shout Factory. Oh, most of the ones we'll talk about are on Shout Factory. And then we have a
Yeah.
few that are going to be available probably like through maybe the Super Aya Facebook page or I mean YouTube page.
Yeah, so really it's gonna be, Mill Creek is where you could purchase them. You can watch them via Shout Factory or Tubi. And then there'll be one or two here and there that we'll watch via like Crunchyroll. Hopefully those will come out via Mill Creek later down the road because hopefully this podcast is around forever. Um, but yeah, the goal is finding ways that if you don't want to invest money, you don't have to. But we're hoping that we can be a podcast to kind of like, because we've had so many people ask us, like, hey, we see like Ultraman, where should we start? And we'd love to be that show to like get people watching it, right? Instead of just like, here's this 2 hour episode about the series of a show and you've never watched anything. It's overwhelming. You don't know what's going on.
Well, that's one thing for me, especially is as more normies are getting into like Mando, they're saying like, "What episodes of Clone Wars should I watch?" And it's like,
Hmm.
Whatever you want." Honestly, I
Yeah.
my biggest pet peeve is when you get into something and someone gives you homework,
Yep.
and like so, I just recently got into the Brandon Sanderson Way of Kings novels. I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen those; they're like 1,000
I have
pages
not.
each. So I put it on
Sounds great.
Goodreads, and 7 people all told me their preferred reading order. None of them fewer than 3,000 pages, and I was like, you guys are lucky that this book is good because you've just turned me off from this entire series, actually."
Right.
So we don't want to do that. We don't
No.
want to send you like 17 series to watch, 17 episodes you have to watch to understand this one. Certainly, there's going to be some like maybe gaps at times, but I don't think we want to be pedantic or rude about that. Like,
Hmm.
for example, I've only watched Ultraman Z and Absolute Conspiracy, and I had no idea. I was absolutely lost.
I mean, you
So
watched a couple episodes of Q.
yeah, but then in their entirety. But yeah,
And
so
you watched the episode of Dinosaur Tank with Dinosaur Tank and Ultra
yeah,
7.
yeah. When sometimes they get played on Tokusatsu on TV.
Yeah.
So yeah, but what we want this to be accessible, something that basically if I watch it, we think you'd all be able to watch it. So some of these classic ones, I've been getting the Steelbook Blu-rays, but those Steelbooks are available on Shout Factory, so we don't want you to necessarily pay anything. You certainly can. We certainly hope
Hmm.
this sparks something where you want to, but
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely want, I mean, Mill Creek, they're doing a great job with this, and obviously we would love to see this happening, and that's only gonna happen if we purchase the movies and the shows, excuse me. But yeah, the part of this too is wanting to bounce back and forth. We don't wanna just do all of the Showa or all of the new gen shows because let's be honest, it can maybe you don't like one of the eras, which is fine, right? I actually like the newer generation more than the older ones. Not to say anything negative against those at all, but that's just what I prefer, and it's something I can watch with my son more easily. So that's kind of our goal, is bouncing back and forth so we have some variety in what we're discussing, so that maybe you don't like this particular show or you don't wanna watch it, that's fine. If you have to wait a couple months, you can join us on the next show, or maybe you don't even wanna watch the show, you just wanna hear us, and maybe you just go you wanna watch a couple episodes, so you listen to that episode of the show, right? So again, you're like Chris said, we don't want you to have homework, but we want to do this in a way that actually encourages people to watch this alongside us and talking about things that people can watch. Because when we did those Godzilla movies, I mean, some of those we had to go to archive.org to be able to watch them, and not everybody wants to do that. So this is hopefully a way to get people on the ultra train. Choo choo.
Choo choo.
All right. So we are going to do some awards too, which we are taking a page from Monsters vs. Men on that one. But Chris, this is one of those surprises I was telling you about. So I told
Mm.
you what the awards were, but I didn't tell you the real names.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So
Okay.
what would be the best kaiju design is the Most Beautiful Kaiju Award.
Oh,
So the
amen.
MBK. The MBK.
Okay. Okay.
Best kaiju death is going to be the Monster Graveyard Award.
Okay.
The best henshin or transformation is the how in the heck did he get away with that award?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I can already see that one.
best out of context line is the aim for its butthole award. And obviously,
God.
favorite episode is favorite episode. There's not
Uh-huh.
really a
Mhm.
different name for that. But then carrying over from the Kaiju Apostle podcast, we had to incorporate Chris's theological insights because if you've listened to our show, that is everybody's favorite part. It
Oh my
even
gosh.
designed, like, it even inspired one of the greatest comics of all time, which
Oh,
I will link.
honestly.
I will link in the show notes how glorious of a thing that erupted from Chris's mouth that went into our friend Eric Schuster's mind, and it produced such a glorious child.
Oh man, the law of unintended consequences really came to the forefront with
Oh
that
yeah, it's
line.
absolutely glorious. My son loves that shirt. He is always so excited when I wear it.
That's amazing. I love that.
So we already kind of talked about our history with Ultraman. At least you did. You started watching Z. You watched Absolute Conspiracy. Uh, just really quick, I started watching it before my daughter was born. Which, if you're not aware, she was born on March 11th, which is the day that the pandemic was officially declared by the World Health Organization. Fun times.
Yeah.
Um, so I started watching Ultra Q before then. I really love Ultra Q, but obviously that happened and I just kind of stopped watching for obvious reasons because we spent a lot of time in the hospital. Then I started getting into Ultraman and I liked it well enough, but Ultraman Z is definitely when it clicked. And from there it was just nonstop. But I mean, I remember Ultraman as a kid or as a teenager, I think, because Ultraman Tiga was on 4Kids. I just never watched it. But I grew up with like
Oh,
Power Rangers and obviously Godzilla. If you've listened to our previous podcast, you know that. So it wasn't hard for me to get into this. But I will say I've tried other shows. Like I know you're really into Super Sentai, Chris. And like I've tried Kamen Rider and stuff like that. I just hasn't really clicked the same way that Ultraman has. So I'm definitely excited. It's something that's become pretty big in our family here. Even my wife knows who the characters are. And I mean, she's obviously supportive of me and my son watching it together. So,
yeah.
ah, water. Got to stay hydrated, man. Um, so, Chris, I mean, what are your thoughts about the show starting? We haven't recorded the first actual episode yet. So, are you excited? Are you nervous? Like, dish.
I think the biggest thing is when I opened my big dumb mouth and said 3 minutes per episode, I didn't have me as the 3 minutes in mind, so we'll have to see. Because there were definitely some Godzillas that oh gosh, our T-shirts would say there's not enough to discuss this movie. Turns out to be the longest episode we've produced. Um, so so I don't know. The that'll be kind of the big push. And like I said, we'll probably be taking some time to get used to it. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely be some growing pains, but I'm excited. I'm excited. So, all right. Well, let's get this wrapped up. Since you already gave it away, you
since I've
dingus.
already spoiled it,
Yeah, so we've got a giveaway, right? Who does a giveaway on their first episode?
only the coolest podcasts.
So, Monsters vs. Men.
Oh gosh, yeah. We're just living in their shadow.
Have you? Okay, so I sent you Kong Skull Island. Have you watched it yet?
No, I was watching this.
Okay, well, I understand that. You have other things you can do. So, point being, they just released their episode about Kong Skull Island, and I haven't audibly replied to a podcast like that in such a long time. It was great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I honestly maybe you could link to them in our show notes when they were on TCAP.
Mhm.
But holy cow, were they some of the most some of the most interesting and
Oh, Alex is
gosh,
a hoot. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, Eric, you're great, but Alex is just like out there. It's great. He's an agent of chaos. It's wonderful. So anyway, we've
Yeah.
partnered with Moviespree. We're excited to announce that, which means we're going to be giving away download codes for most of the shows we're covering. So to start things off, we have count them two codes for
2.
the Birth of Ultraman, which has 7 of the most iconic episodes from the original Ultraman series, both subbed and dubbed, along with the Birth of Ultraman stage show. So here's the catch: there are 2 ways to enter, one via Twitter and one through our website. So for Twitter, you're going to want to head over to our page, twitter.com/atrociouspod. So I'm going to say atrocious because that's how they say it on Ultraman Z and some of these other Ultraman shows, but it's really just atrocious, right? ATROCIOUS pod. And then check out the instructions on our pinned tweet. And through our website, you're going to want to head over to atrociouspod.com, go to our contact page, and send us a message with the code word Pigma. We'll announce both winners on our next episode, which, since we're recording that episode tonight, I'm just going to have to do a bumper with that announcement. So,
Yeah.
we'll get that figured out. So we are excited about that, but make sure to listen for the winners on our next episode.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you when they are during the episode.
No, no, you're just going to have to listen.
Yeah.
All right. So next episode, we are going to be discussing episodes 1 through 10 of the original Ultraman, starting with Ultra Operation number 1 and ending with the mysterious dinosaur base. So here's the thing. I guess we should have said this before. We're a bi-weekly podcast, but for this first round, it's going to be 2 episodes in a row. And then we're going to be going bi-weekly from there to help spread it out, because who has time to watch 10 episodes of Ultraman a week? Wait, everybody should be doing that. But we want to help you out. So we're not going to be doing every week. Plus, actually, let's be honest, we don't have time to do that. My wife would kill me if we were doing episodes every week. So,
Yeah. So would my wife, obviously.
Chris, I really meant to say your wife is lovely. Like, I am
Oh
so glad I've
man.
got to know her. Gruntilda, I mean, she's great. She's great. I don't
I
know
just
what her issue is with that barren bird, but I don't know. God, I hate my life.
Darn it.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and close us out here, Chris?
I do. So we want to thank you so much for listening to our show. Thank you for sticking with us so long already. Make sure to subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. I know you don't want to miss any of them. And if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can head over to the website, which is atrociouspod.com. Is that right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Perfect. So, it's on the second page where you can find all of our social media accounts, and then you can also send us your listener feedback, which we do appreciate. We don't do this for anything other than connections and relationships and friends. So
And
we're not.
clout, internet
Well, yeah,
clout. Give
obviously
us
the cloud, but if
likes.
I say that out loud, then we're suddenly less cool.
No, we just got to be honest, man. Like, that's the whole thing now, right? Being transparent and vulnerable with our
That's true.
shortcomings. You say
That's
the
true.
quiet things out loud.
Well, and so we are looking for the clout. So please, all the 5 stars you can shower upon us. But also, more importantly, you can send in some prayer requests through the website. You can DM the Twitter account,
Mhm.
and I also have a separate a Twitter handle. So send us your prayer requests. We do pray for those. We had a few people from Kaiju Apostle reach out, and it was such a joy to be able to pray for those.
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, definitely some were like pretty real. So you really
Yeah.
get into the nitty gritty of people's lives. So we're definitely happy to do that, and definitely happy to see where this goes over the next.
5 years.
Yeah, I was
I
going to
know you
try and
didn't
put
sign up for
Ultra in
that.
there again. That's going to be my whole thing. The show is just put Ultra anywhere.
Until next time. Put Ultra anywhere. Oh boy. Oh, I'll show you where I'll put Ultra.